Hey everybody, welcome to Mgtow is Freedom. I'm your host, John. Today's video is about the history of Mgtow. That is, where did it come from? When did it start? Right? This idea, this modern concept of men going their own way. And all you have to do is be your own man and choose your own path, and you are going your own way. So let's take a look. What caused our problem, right? Let's think about it. It used to be that if you could afford it and you wanted kids, you could marry a woman, but something else happened. Something changed. So this video, the rise of feminism and the fall of man. Okay, this isn't a modern thing. A lot of men that I've talked to, a lot of people think that feminism got its start in the 60s. That is very, very inaccurate. It actually started in the late 1700s with some French people. Blame the French. But let's look at where it became a significant problem in the United States of America. From 1848 to 1920, the women's rights movement started. You could call that first wave feminism. Voting, property rights, just some basic things that women wanted from men. Right? They wanted to get out of the cave. They wanted to be in charge of their own lives now that men created civilization and created luxuries and comfort. And they created government to secure those rights. Rights to property, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that sort of thing. So that happened for men, but only after men, right, fought and died, were tortured to death to get it, right? And everyone worked hard, make no bones about it. Women busted their asses in the homes, and men busted their asses in the homes and out in the fields and on the battlefield, the literal battlefield. They had to figure it all out because no one had taught them. They were uneducated, just hardworking, creative men. So that's when it started, right? 1848 to 1920. That was the first wave feminist stuff, right? First wave of feminism. There was this woman from 1846 to 1911 she lived. Go look up on the internet pictures of this woman. Her name is Carrie Nation. Every picture you see of her, she looks like she's about 155. She is a scowling hag, bitch of a woman. Fucking ugly, serious Victorian prude bitch. And let me tell you about this woman, Carrie Nation. Read your history. Carrie Nation led the temperance movement. Okay? The temperance movement was about removing alcohol. That led to the Prohibition Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That's how much power women got right away because of the women's rights movement. The first wave, they got the right to vote. And they started pushing their agenda. The first thing they wanted to do, take away men's right to alcohol. And I mean, this was an ugly bitch. And what she used to do is she hated anyone who drank alcohol. She'd go into bars, literally, walk behind the bar and start smashing the liquor and the mirrors and everything in bars. Now, men back then were men, and they weren't used to feminist cunts. So they did not bitch slap her down or throw her out by her fucking hair, you know, or arrest her dumb ass and beat the shit out of her, throw her in the corner till the cops got there. You try that shit today and that's what's going to happen. Because that's right, women are getting their equal rights and equal treatment as much as men can. But back then it was unheard of. So this cunt, Carrie Nation, started doing this. And she created a fervor, a stink. She was a one-woman masculine wrecking machine with regard to drinking. And her activities, her promotion of both the women's rights movement and the temperance movement caused prohibition. That is the constitutional amendment to make the drinking of alcohol, the creation of and drinking of it, illegal. Whew. And luckily that got repealed because not only did men like to drink, but women did too. But that bitch died in 1911. But as a result of her hard work of being a cunt, an in-your-face bitch, and a pain in the ass, she caused a lot of trouble. But let this be a lesson to us as men. If one woman Carrie Nation could cause this much trouble, imagine what 100 men or 1,000 men or 10,000 men fighting back against feminist hypocrisy and bullshit can do. Imagine it. You don't have to, you can't walk into some place and smash it up, right? You can't go into some women's store and just beat all the perfume bottles to death and destroy all the makeup and say, quit lying to women and telling them they're beautiful. They're actually ugly hags underneath all that clown makeup. All right? What else did Carrie Nation do? She contributed to prostitution being outlawed. She contributed to that. How? Because of the rise of women's power and the push by all women to outlaw prostitution because respectable women want marriage. What that means is women who weren't fit to marry and were too fucking ugly to be prostitutes, they still wanted to get married. They wanted someone else to take care of them. So they pushed for the outlawry of prostitution, saying it was filthy. And so all of the speakeasies and brothels and men's clubs of the time, you know, whether or not prostitution was illegal, it still happened. It wasn't prosecuted because men who couldn't afford and didn't want wives needed sex, wanted sex. And there were women who were not marrying quality and who were willing to be whores, that is, honest whores, prostitutes. They were willing to trade pussy for money, and that's how they made their living, literally. Prostitutes. It's the oldest profession, and it's the easiest. Women are born with the tools they need to make a living. That is a back and a pussy. Lay on the back and give up the pussy. There it is. But Carrie Nation and others like her, Victorian prudes, killed that for men. They destroyed prostitution. And even up through the 70s, in a town where I grew up, there was still prostitutes, still brothels working in California, not in big cities. And yeah, they weren't legal, but they were there, and they were there for men and men's needs. And it's slowly been destroyed, slowly, decade after decade after decade, because respectable women want marriage. And by respectable, we mean Victorian prudes who are ugly as fucking sin. So by taking away men's easy ability to get pussy, they forced men into marriage. Forced them into marriage. Forced men into marriage. And that is important. Because not all men got married, and not all men had children, and not all women got married. And a lot of those prostitutes did have children. They're known as bastards. And there are lots of bastards, and there's nothing wrong with them, except their parents weren't married, they weren't legitimately created or intentionally created, and they're bastards. The world needs bastards to get things done. We all need to work our asses off, and bastards have their place. All right, so the first wave, right, the women's rights movement, lasted a long time, resulted in voting property rights, the destruction of prostitution, and the prohibition of alcohol. That got repealed. The 1960s saw the second wave of feminism. It's called the Women's Liberation Movement. It encouraged divorce and equal rights. That's when you hear about bra burning and women going, and this is the hippies and all the protests. They started this where if they didn't get their way, they wanted to protest. So women, in order to get further down this road, they wanted divorce and equal rights. Okay, they had free love. Free love, men. That was the beginning of the cock carousel. That is, women just having sex wherever they wanted. This is the sexual revolution in the second wave women's liberation movement, the feminist movement. But what happened as a result of this is not only did women start giving the pussy away for free on the one hand, but they were encouraged by the women's rights movement to divorce men and demand equal rights and an equality, an equal share of what the man had earned. So the courts began to punish men, and men began to feel heavily, right, the birth of gynocentrism. That is, women being the center of all things, a gynocentric society. So women were, on the one hand, just up here, just the last 100 years, were forcing men into marriage who otherwise wouldn't. Then they got to the part where they decided that they needed a way to get out, divorce. So women first forced marriage on men. And as soon as that was accepted by society, that everyone was getting married, then they decided to make divorce easy, right? That's what they fucking did to us. They forced men into marriage and then made it easy to divorce them and steal their shit. Thank you, women like Carrie Nation. What a wench. What a fucking whore. What a cunt of cunts. I'm sure she and Hillary Clinton would have a nice time at dinner. But that is what happened. Because prior to prostitution being destroyed, whether it was legal or not doesn't matter. There were prostitutes everywhere, and men could get their fucking nuts taken care of by a prostitute. When they were forced into marriage, respectable women got married. And these weren't really respectable women. These were women who weren't happy about the fact that they needed a man, forced men into taking them, and as soon as they could, equal rights and encouraged divorce via the women's liberation movement and their control of the law and the court system because they had gained the rights to vote. And what good would property rights up here be without a mechanism to give them everything? Equal rights and law, under law, and equal rights in the courts. Look how men got fucked. Women got equal rights and easy divorce so they could use those property rights. And they got what they wanted by exercising their right to vote. Holy fuck, huh? So let's go up to third wave feminism, the 1990s. Political correctness and third wave feminism. Masculinity, being a man. That was a severe attack on our masculinity. As if the other two movements and the first two waves weren't bad enough. Third wave feminism, political correctness. They started controlling our speech. And when they tell someone they can't talk, and talking and thinking a certain way is wrong, you're controlling thought. Third wave of feminism. Lost my lid, one sec. Oh, okay. Third wave of feminism came in the 1990s. And I don't know if they want to call it fourth wave or fifth wave now, but you're seeing a continuation of the same programs. So the 1990s political correctness, masculinity was just taking it on the chin. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, and they were using social pressure to control our speech and control our thinking. But it gets better. 2001 to present time. I'm going to call it fourth wave